Andre DeQuisto. I'm the founder of Lone Wolf Portable Tree Stands, Lone Wolf Custom Gear.
All right, well, we got Dan on the line.
And I started thinking, I probably shouldn't have shared those pictures.
All right, guys, we got Don Higgins on.
Anything that's got to do with chasing big deer, I've got my hands in it somehow. So.
Well, my name's John Eberhardt. The first one that comes to mind was early in my career.
I'm Scott Buckley from Iowa. I had jumped him in the summer, too. He jumped up in that swamp grass down in the bottom lake.
And, that's what I'm doing. I'm chasing it. There ain't nothing stopping me.
Justin Hollinsworth. I'm with Whitetail Addictions and Lone Wolf Custom Gear.
So what are we talking about tonight?
We're talking about the one that got away.
They talked about a deer that you didn't get it done on for some reason. So go ahead and get into the story of the one that got away.
Welcome to the Whitetail Legacy Podcast, coming in your ear heroes with episode 4, and we're talking to Dan Infalt on an absolute off-the-wall buck on this episode. Super excited for you guys to hear this story. I don't know if he's talked about it much or not, but
when we recorded this, I was kind of mind blown.
Yeah, I was intrigued on this one.
Yeah,
so really good story. But we're gonna get into the people that make this possible quick. We're gonna get right to the show. Let's start off with Exit this week. What you got over there?
Yeah, guys, getting into kind of the November trail camera strategy. Mock scrapes and real scrapes. Early November is making sure that you hang your cameras off the scrapes a little. I got a couple that are about 7 yards, 7 to 8 yards. You can actually really get the whole deer in the picture there. And we feel that cell cams are the best here, so you don't put any scent in that area to let that buck know that's hitting that scrape, that you've been there and are going to try to hunt him down.
You're not altering anything going in there. You just know what's hitting the scrape is what's hitting the scrape. I didn't alter a deer or spook a deer by going in there and pulling the cam. So, All right, I'm going to hit you with Right On Optics, guys. Week 5, talking to you about them. I want to cover one of their products this week. It's called the One Conqueror 6x24x50. This is one of their long-range scopes. This features all the enhancements of a long-range scope at a fraction of the cost. This optic features 67 minutes of angle, or MOA, of an internal adjustment. It has an integrated throw level, which I really think is cool. So on a lot of scopes, you know how they have like the 3 to 9 or 6 to 24. It has a lever that sticks up. It's removable or not. That's a really good like half inch to catch your thumb to really move that quick to where you want it. I think that's a really cool added feature. Sometimes you got gloves on and it's really hard to roll that scope, but with this it's real easy. It has a 1/4 inch MOA windage and elevation adjustment. It's also 100% waterproof, fog-proof, and shock-proof. They tested it like 1,200 Gs or something, 12,000 Gs. I don't know. I don't get into that. But
not in the nerdy.
Yeah. And it's backed by their unlimited lifetime warranty. So if you're looking for a long-range scope, I think this is an awesome one. Just having something that's backed by that warranty. If you drop it, if you break it, anything, it's covered. So you can check them out at rightonoptics.com.
All right, getting into Last Breath TV. If you guys enjoy this barely above average podcast, the Last Breath crew also puts out their very own podcast. It's called the Last Breath Huntcast, and they cover a variety of topics, and their specialty is the Hunterversy, where they talk about a debatable topic in the hunting industry and cover both sides of it, and then at the end of the day, they talk about it, and everybody kind of learns from it. Yeah. So very cool thing that they got going on over there. If you're looking for another podcast to add to your list, that would be one I recommend.
All right, I'm going to hit you with Underwarmer. So I was trying to think, when we were writing these ads of when I was cold, when I can remember being the coldest hunting. And I remember when I first, when I was first hunting and I didn't have the best gear, I rode to the stand on a four-wheeler a lot. And by the time I got to the stand, I was bone cold before I even got out. So I was thinking, man, this would be great for wearing to the stand if you had a long ride on a four-wheeler or a side-by-side. There's nothing worse than being cold from the wind on the ride in before you even get to hunt, you know. And that's I remember one of the hunts where I was just frozen when I was young, and I had rode in with my grandpa on the side-by-side, and we had rode down that gravel road, and I was already smoked by the time we got in the blind, and then you're sitting there and you're trying to get re-warm, but once you're cold, you're done. So if I'd have had this thing, I could have put it on at the house and had it warming up, ready to go, and rode through there. I think it would have definitely helped me out. But you can check out them at underwarmer.com. Something we don't get to do is ride to the stand four-wheeler. But a lot of hunters are out there riding four-wheelers or side-by-sides or something like that. So
talking about staying warm, code Whitetail Legacy can get you 20% off Black Rifle. And
that coffee fix, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm going to use that code, and I'm just going to buy about 50 of those, the pre-made energy drink coffees for season. Yeah, just to be able to rip those suckers. They won't keep you warm, but they'll keep you caffeinated, and I need that during those bike rides in at 4:30 in the morning.
The difference before I get caffeinated and after in the morning is
night and day.
Yeah, it's mind-blowing. Also got a code for Badlands gear. If you guys need a new pack or a bino harness, some new camo. If you're tired of ripping your camo and having to buy new, Badlands has a lifetime warranty, and we got a discount code for you. You just got to reach out to us on social media, and we can direct you in the right direction.
You got Next Level?
Yeah, Next Level. Guys, fall is here, and the natural browse is going to be diminishing with and offering less nutrition, and also crops are coming out. So providing Next Level products for your deer herd can help them not only fill the nutritional holes from the season change, but also help hold deer on your property for the duration of the season. So get your order in there at nextleveldeer.com.
All right, guys, let's get into the show.
All right, well, we got Dan on the line, kind of a spur-of-the-moment podcast. We appreciate you for making it on.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, we just had a little chat. You said it's probably easier to get you a spur-of-the-moment, and I believe it. You got so much going on with your content, your stand, the podcast you go on. So first of all, just wanted to give a huge shout-out for the time that you dedicate to the hunting industry, for coming on podcasts like ours so people can get some knowledge and learn from you, because it's definitely a full-time job.
Well, thanks.
Well, we wanted to have you on this series because, you are the guy that gets it done no matter what, and you're out there, you're having fun, you're doing the best that you can, putting in more time than anybody I know, guaranteed that. Mm-hmm. So wanted to have you on the series, the one that got away, and basically just talk about a buck that you hunted and the stars didn't align on you. I'm excited to cover this topic with you because I've listened to you on multiple podcasts, and your successes are awesome, but I know I'm going to be able to learn something from you out there struggling to try to get it done on a buck that didn't happen.
Yeah, people dwell so much on the successes and stuff, they don't realize that everybody that's successful has a multitude of failures. That's what builds your success. It's failure after failure after failure until you finally succeed.
Yeah, that's what stage we're in. Just fail, fail, fail. And then one glorious moment, we're going to come out shining like a beacon, and they'll be like, oh, yeah, this is what we're supposed to be doing out here.
Yeah, often the buildup really makes your success feel as good as it does.
What was that?
I said often your failures make your success feel as good as it does.
Right, exactly. That's what makes the success so glorious. And that's what really makes whitetail hunting so great. So many people seem to get so upset about failing, but that failure is what makes the success so much better.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that time where you're out there and you just can't figure it out, and then you get that light bulb moment, and you're like, oh, this is how this is supposed to work out. So in your vast, history of the bucks that you've hunted, I know that you're kind of a multiple target kind of guy. Can you pick out one buck that you really, tried to go in after and the stuff just didn't line out?
Yeah, there's a couple that come to mind that I struggle between the two of them, telling you which one. But probably the bear bait buck. That's the more recent one.
The bear bait.
That sounds interesting.
Yeah, sounds interesting.
that buck, I was breeding bears, and it was about 7-8 years ago, something like that. taking a guess there. Maybe I'm off by a year or two. But I had some young guys with me that were helping, and we were in National Forest in Clark County, Wisconsin, and it's a very big wooded area. And we were putting in a new bait, and one of the kids ran back to the truck to get some bear scents and stuff. And he comes back and he says, "Man, you should see the buck that walked across the logging road when I was up there." And I'm thinking to myself, it's like late May. They don't even have antlers. And I says, bucks don't have antlers right now. And he goes, "Well, this one did. It had like, just bases coming out with like Coke cans." And I'm like, okay. And I kind of laughed it off until the next week when I checked the cameras at the bear baits. And here's this buck, after the bears opened the bait, eating the bread and stuff. And genuinely, it's a giant buck, but it's just got this, starting of antlers. So I thought it was kind of funny and unique, and I posted all my bear pictures, so I posted the deer pictures with it, and everybody started talking. And it was fun at first, but then this thing kept growing and growing and growing. And I started thinking, I probably shouldn't have shared those pictures. But I went along with it, and I kept sharing them since I had already started. And I watched this thing grow, and it got to the point where it was really aggressive over the bear bait. You'd see it pace back and forth around the stump until the bears would open it, and then it would eat. And then it got to the point where it even tried to shove the top of the log off itself. And it just kept getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And it ended up growing that first year an 18-point rack. I think it was a 3-year-old buck. I think it was a young buck with a huge rack. And it was well over 200 inches, which is really rare for that area of big woods. So the bear hunt became a deer hunt. And at first it was kind of a struggle because, they had just banned baiting of deer in that area. And I started thinking, well, what lines am I crossing here?
Yeah.
What can I do?
I'm
What
putting
I
out
can't
bread.
do? Right. Because, this thing's eating out of my bait. And, you make it deer proof, but as soon as the bear opens it, the deer eat it. Now, can I hunt the deer at that spot? Can I close the bait and go in there? So I figured the best thing to do was just to be honest about it and call the county warden and tell him what was going on and say, what do I have to do to hunt this deer? And I did. And to my surprise, he told me that if it's a legal bear bait, I have a legal bear permit, and I'm closing the bait every time I leave the bait, like you legally are required to do anyways. I can shoot the deer right there if I want to. And it was, it was kind of weird because I'd go in and I'd bait, and on the cameras 15 or 20 minutes later, the buck would be at the stump looking up the trail the way I went. And then I was thinking, I could probably shoot this thing right here. And bear season opens a little earlier than deer season, so we didn't bear hunt there. We just kept baiting it, and baiting it for bears, but planning on killing that deer there. And on opening day, I had the dilemma of I started double thinking things. Now, this thing knows when I'm in there because it's at that bait 15, 20 minutes later after it baits. I thought, well, should I go down there and bait for the bears and climb a tree right there and then? The wind was right for the spot at that point. It was blowing over a really thick cutover behind the bait, and the deer never went in that cutover according to the cameras. So otherwise, I could actually come through that cutover and get into a tree that's in the thick and look through an opening at the bait. And I was thinking that might be the better method. But if I failed, I did something different, and the deer would probably freak out, So I decided to go in there bait it like usual on opening day at the same time frame I did for the bears, and just take the buckets and hide them in the brush behind the tree and climb up the tree and see what happens. And that's what I did. And as I'm pulling the bow up into the tree, I can hear the buck walking down the hill. And he comes into sight, and you couldn't see him on camera. He stayed behind some like pine trees, but I could physically see him through the holes in the pine trees and see it was him. And he got to, I say, about 18 yards, and he stopped behind this pine tree staring at the bait. And he stared and stared and stared, and all of a sudden he stomped and snorted and ran up the hill snorting. And I think it blew his mind that I went in there and never left. Because the wind was perfect. There's no way he got my wind. So then it was game on, which is more my style to go after him, you know. And he would still hit the bear bait, but he would hit it at 9 or 10 o'clock at night after that. He never came in daylight again until the next year on camera at that spot. After that meeting of me and him. So then I had not really pre-scouted the area. So I had to go and use maps and stuff to figure out the area, figure out where I thought the bedding areas were, go in and roughly scout it. And the good thing is this buck did a lot of rubbing. So wherever he went, there's rub lines. There's rub lines go right up to the bear bait, up the hill to where he was bedding. And it turned out later when I looked at it after season, I followed the rub line back and found his bed, and he was literally watching me walk down and bait. He was 75 yards from the bait. But anywho, after he busted me, I started looking around, and you'd find his rubs. But on my camera, I think I had every deer in the area on my cameras. And the only other bucks were like 1.5 years, and maybe 1 2.5-year-old that were all small. So you knew if you found a big rub, it was his. And I had competition. There was a guy that had a giant pile of corn and a camera over it. And I actually went over and checked his card, and he had that buck all over it. So what he was doing was illegal, but that's not my job. That's a warden's job. So I just hunted around him. But I went and scouted and found where he was bedding in some swamps around there and bedding in a clear cut. And I hunted him quite a bit, but I never got eyes on him hunting again. But the next year, one of my hunting partners had a bear permit. We put in a bear bait. One day in August, we got a picture of him behind that same pine tree staring at the bait, but he never went back to it. And at that point, we think he was a 4.5 where he got smart enough not to come around. And he left a lot of sign that year. And again, I never crossed paths with him. And I think my greatest regret with that buck was that I didn't take enough time. It was a 2.5-hour ride there from my house. And I just feel like I should have taken more time and hunted there more and taken more time off. Because I think he was very killable. I think he lived in a very small core area.
Yeah, 2.5 hours one way, that's a haul. I mean, go up there and maybe camp out and stuff and try to make it happen. But driving up there hunting and driving back, that would be brutal.
Yeah.
Well, that's crazy, man. Bear bait. We don't get to hunt bears here, where we're from, but I could see that, deer going in there and eating on that stuff. But for him to be 3.5 and be that big, and it's crazy that there's no other big deer in the area either. That kind of blows my mind. A bunch of small bucks and then him.
Yeah, there was the year he disappeared, a 200-incher got shot in that forest, and it was big news all around the state. So I figured they got him. But a couple years later, I ran across pictures of that buck, and it was definitely not the same buck.
Man, so there wasn't
another
I don't know out there. Yeah, I mean that big of a timber, it's hard. We think that all the time. Oh, we got every deer on cam around here. We got enough cams out, and then then shotgun season shows up, and we're like, where did this deer come from? Probably been there the whole time, or he's just skating us. And then you're like, well, there's a 170 we had no idea existed. But
Yeah.
So you hunted this deer back-to-back year. That second year, did you go in there after him very much, or was he just on that camera the one time and you didn't hunt him?
I only got a picture of him once, but the sign was there. The bedding areas were lit up with the big rubs. And then the year after that, everything went dead, and it was all just like 1.5 and 2.5-year-old rubs. But there was also a ton of hunter pressure in the area, especially gun season. I mean, everywhere you scouted, everywhere you went, there's bullet shells laying all over the ground. And, that's probably why there ain't very many big bucks around there.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't doubt it. If that second year he got winged and just went someplace and died and wasn't found, or
that's devastating.
Or, because of being injured, didn't last through the winter or something. I don't know, but who knows?
Did you ever second guess anything that you did on that very first hunt for him? I know you said the wind was good.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I wish I would have came in through the thick area and went up the tree.
Yeah, because you said he was watching you come in, so he probably was watching you go out, and then went in there really cautious. Was like, man, I'm not feeling it today. I didn't see him go out. I'm not going in there. But like you said, for him to be consistently going in there 25, 30 minutes after
you lead,
there's got to be some human scent still there, you know what I mean? So it wouldn't be, even him smelling.
Right, I figured I was fine with ground scent. Yeah. It was, airborne scent. I just know that, the struggle within me was, when you go and you do those crazy things where you try something a little different or something, if that deer catches you doing it, it's over. But apparently it was over if you caught me doing what I thought I should do, but you think you can get away with that. I mean, I don't know, it's hard to reason whether a deer can reason if you leave or not. I don't know if that's for sure or not, but it sure seemed that way. He knew something was up.
Yeah, I would
but
think.
But where he was at, he could probably see me disappear at the tree I climbed. I don't think he could see me climbing because it was a nasty mess of pines. But I think he could see me at the base of the tree from where he was bedded. See, that's one of the things that I do with big bucks is I never settle with, okay, I didn't get him, and it's over. That next year I'll track down and find out where he was coming from, where he was bedding and all that kind of crap,
Yeah, that's what we did this year. Over. We were like, okay, we didn't get him, and then we really went in there, and we were like, okay, we got to figure this dude out. And then that's when the stuff starts clicking. That's when you're like, oh, okay, he's back in here, and we're thinking he's over here. So we're thinking we're in his bedroom, and we're on a side street. We're not even close.
So I think that second year I had a much better chance because of that, because I went in there in January and really scouted the area,
Yeah, that 3.5 to 4.5, I think, like you said, there's a light switch where they're like, I don't know if I want to be too living on the edge anymore. And he had the encounter with you, and no telling how many encounters during gun season with other hunters in that area. But I'm sure he had encounters with, squirrel hunters and all kinds of stuff bouncing around back in there if there's gun casings laying all over the place. So that's something we see a lot up here is you get in an area and then, it's public land. You can't complain at all, but people love to squirrel hunt around here. Ton of squirrel hunters out there and rabbit hunters kicking brush piles and stuff, and you got to live with them, not complaining at all, but it definitely does educate some deer when they are 3.5 and 4.5 to be like, okay, maybe this isn't the best place to be out in the daylight. But you said that was 6 or 7 years ago when you were hunting this deer, so I know you would have kind of went in and accessed it a different way, but is there anything else that you think you might have done different since you've had another 6 or 7 years of hunting, I guess, events or education that you would have tried to throw at this deer?
I think the only thing that I would have did really majorly different is I would have put more time into them. I kind of regret not really spending a lot of time on that deer.
Yeah, that would be
I was just going up there for the weekends kind of thing, and,
That's tough. And we got one that's giant like that too, and you're always on the edge. Like, do you want to waste your season hunting this deer when you know that you could kill other deer you know, you have a better chance of killing other deer, but do you want to risk it for the reward of this giant, you know, people say once in a lifetime deer? And that's where we're kind of at too. Like, how much time do you dedicate to going in there? It sounds like you regret it, so maybe we should up our time, because it's kind of the same thing. It's a little ways away. It's really hard to get to. It takes a lot of time to hunt, and you just have to dedicate so much time. And last year we missed opportunities at other deer where we were like, okay, we're gonna go hunt this, and then the mobile cam's blasting. You know, people, you don't know if they would have been there, if you would have been there, but still, you know that buck was in that area, and your second plan was, let's go there.
Mm-hmm. Every time.
Yeah, but you're like, okay, we got to risk it on this big dude and go for it. But
you know, the thing is, when you know when I hunt near home, I will hunt every day and hunt a deer down. You know, and I'll have interactions with them constantly, and it's because I'm hunting every day. But if you get away and you go someplace for weekends, and you get up there, you know, Friday night, and then you hunt Saturday and Sunday, and you come back, when you get back up to the next week, everything's different again. Now that you go back to that bedding area or whatever, it's almost like you got to refigure them out.
Mm-hmm.
You know, where you're on them and you're constantly, you know, following him to where he's going, and you're hunting all the bedding areas down. When you're around home, you know, you can cover a lot of area in 6 days of hunting, you know, at home versus 2 days on this road trip. You know, so it's a huge difference on a road trip type hunting a specific target. And I think most people that go on road trips, you know, where they go long distance to hunt, aren't hunting a specific deer. They're hunting a big deer, you know, any big deer. So hunting a specific deer on the road is a pretty tough task.
yeah, most people that are going to Iowa, they're just looking for the biggest buck, or they're traveling to Kansas or something for a weekend. They're just trying to get in the vicinity of a big one. They're not going down there that they got one picked out that they're trying to target.
Right.
But a buck on bear bait, I've never heard that before. That's a new one for me, but that's pretty awesome. Man. Going in there, and you're just thinking, oh, you know, get on some bears, and then boom, here's a 200 in your lap. You're thinking, okay, I got to rethink this whole. So did you ever hunt bears there, or did you just leave it for that deer?
I did hunt bears there after the deer disappeared. It was a good bear spot.
It's crazy that we don't have bears either. So but
no
deer
idea.
and bear just out there chilling.
You know, it's kind of interesting because I had a lot of deer in all my bear baits up there. They would eat the pita bread. For some reason, they really liked that pita bread. It was funny because this stuff's shaped like a disc, and I'd had pictures of them with this. It almost looks like they were playing frisbee or something. They got discs in their mouth, and you know, there'd be a ton of deer coming in there, and into some of the other baits too. But you know, not other 200 inchers. But you'd see a pack of wolves come in and eat at the bait, leave, and 10 minutes later, deer would come in and eat. You'd think they wouldn't have anything to do with a spot that smells like wolves.
Yeah, you'd think they'd be avoiding that like the plague. Like this dude just got a snack. He's been waiting for me to show up for the main course.
You better have seen him leave.
I got pictures of that giant buck in the background watching the bear eat, like he's waiting for the bear to get done.
That's crazy. I guess when you're that big, I mean, you could kind of defend yourself a little bit, but 18 points, and you had him all the way through velvet and out of velvet and everything, so that's awesome. Man.
Yeah,
you
exactly.
You got a lot of pictures of that deer, and then that's another thing. When you start getting a lot of pictures of them, you get that emotional connection where you're like, oh, man, this deer would be really cool because I got all this history, and start thinking about him in your dreams and stuff.
Most guys get that in them when they, you get a buck like that coming in, every day at the same time. You think this is done, it's over. But you really underestimate the the will to live with those bucks. I mean, they don't just come waltzing in there that easy. They're coming in paranoid, and if there's any way they can bust you, they will.
Yeah, you'd be sitting in that stand right when you put that bait out. Your adrenaline's like through the roof because you're like, he's guaranteed coming in. Like, if I might not get a shot, but I'm guaranteed to see this thing on the first set. So that right there is insane in itself.
And that's one of the things where almost immediately I was regretting not coming through that thick stuff because I wasn't even really set up yet, and I could hear that thing coming down the hill. I just got the stand up. I've got in it, and I'm like pulling my bow up, and you hear this thing walking in, and it's like, holy crap, I got to get everything ready right now,
Yeah.
Where if I came in the other way and, just let them come in natural that day, then, however, I think part of my thinking was, after I bait, he comes in, and once the bait's gone, because the bears eat it in a couple days, he's not always coming right in, you know what I mean? But the day you bait, he comes in.
He's got to get the freshy fresh.
That was part of my reason. What I could have did is I had other people that were baiting with me. I could have went in there, set up, and then had them come in and bait and leave.
Oh, yeah, that would have been a good idea. That would have been real. You could sneak through the back door, have them bait, then them roll out. I think that would have worked. That deer would have been like, okay, if he, like you said, if he can comprehend.
That's probably the difference of having that buck on my wall.
Yeah, if he can comprehend you leaving as being gone, because he's probably seen you do it at this point, at least 15, 20 times if you're in there baiting. I don't know how often do you, if they're eating it every 2 days, you got to bait that thing pretty regular, I would say. But
yeah, because of the distance we were driving, I was baiting it once a week.
Once a week, man. That's
and then
right
before season, the bear baits, I was baiting like twice a week. But in this situation, I just kept the routine going.
Yeah, like you said, if you would have had a guy go in there and bait that, and then snuck in the back door and set up, that would have definitely.
It wasn't like he was used to my scent, because those guys did occasionally bait for me, and the buck would be in there right after they left too.
That's something we've always comprehended too. Like, can a deer just get used to your scent? Because we've had this button buck, and then he's a forked horn, and now he's a 6-pointer, and he always comes to the same scrape tree. We've seen him like 3 times. I'm like, eventually, when this deer's big, he's gonna be so used to our scent and not getting killed. He's just gonna be like, oh, I'm solid right now. There's a bird watcher guys out here again.
Yeah.
That's what we need.
Yeah, there has to be a little bit to that. Think about a dog. You can take him in a crowd of 100 people, have him sniff one guy's hat, and run right to that guy.
Yeah. There's got to be something.
Smells better than a dog.
Well, we'll know in about this year or next year if he's solid and he just cruises right in. We're like, yeah, we've been coaxing this guy for 4. That'd be the secret tip. All right, you gotta hunt these young bucks. You gotta hunt these young bucks. Yeah. On the off wind, you want the wind blowing right at them every time you hunt these young button bucks and forked horns, and then they'll just get used to you. And then when it's time to go, you're there.
Right. No issues at all.
Yeah, no issues at all. He just comes cruising right in. Oh, so you never got a conclusion with this deer. You said another 200-inch deer was killed out there, but it wasn't the same one, and he just kind of disappeared. Maybe got wounded during shotgun season and balled up. It's a giant timber.
Or maybe somebody just killed him that's quiet about it. Sometimes some people just don't say much.
Yeah, that's true too. We always wonder that, like, how many just absolute legends are out there that no one's ever even seen. There's a guy who lives out in the middle of nowhere, and he just has the biggest pile of sheds. He has some like 90-inch sheds, just white chalk, just thrown in a pile outside of his front door. I'm like, this guy's been scooping for 30 years, probably killed giants, and no one has ever seen any of the sheds that he's got because they're all buried right outside his front door. But I'm sure there's a bunch of bucks out there that are like that. Wasn't there a record book found just here recently on a skull plate that was just someone found, and it was maybe their grandpa shot it and they measured it? I think I remember hearing that story, but. So when you were hunting this deer, this is kind of off the wall tactics we're using, but did you ever use any of the stuff on another deer that this deer used? Did you ever like try to have one come to a bear bait that you could try these tactics again to?
No, I did. We did have other big bucks hit the bear baits. But the biggest one was probably like close to 150 or something, and I never really put time into them. I just, hunted different deer back home. But it's odd, and that's one of the things where most people won't get out of their box. They can't do something different, and you have to adapt. Every deer's different and stuff. You run into situations, For me, it was a little bit weird hunting over a bear bait, kind of thing for a deer, it was kind of just a strange feeling because it's just not my style.
Mm-hmm.
But obviously that would kill that deer if done correctly.
Yeah, you got to do whatever it takes. That's what we say all the time. And if you got one coming in, and with it being 2.5 hours away, I could see why if you didn't have anything that really tricked your trigger, that you'd be like, okay, I'm going to get rid of all these other bucks that I got locally that are just as big or bigger and go up there and try to kill one over this bear bait. But definitely an off-the-wall tactic and story. I've never heard any kind of story like that.
Yeah, just like you said, Dan. Like you got bears there, you got wolves there, and like this giant's just hanging around. It's something that, and maybe it happens more than we know. It definitely something that we have no experience with. But
well, you think about just the attitude of that deer versus other deer. His bed was literally, when I looked in the spring, I followed his rub line right to the bed. You could see where it was sitting. Where he was sitting, he was 75 yards from that bait, watching every bear walk in there, every wolf walk in there, everything that walked into that bait. He was sitting there watching the whole time.
Huh. He had a sweet spot where he's like, man, this pita bread is fire. I cannot leave this stuff. I got to keep my eyes. I got to be the first one in there after they put that fresh out. But, yeah, I mean, he's living around people that much, and it's like I said, it's crazy. And then when those deer get a little older, it's like a light switch where they're like, okay, I lived on the edge so it's just like us when we get a little older.
Yeah.
You're running around, jumping off stuff, riding motocross, and now you're like, man, maybe I should walk down these stairs instead of jump 3 of them at a time. Don't like to live as risky. What's it? Okay, we got one more question for you. So I know that this was like a kind of an off-the-wall tactic, but you did go in there and follow this deer back and realize that he was bedding really close. We were kind of trying to see if any of these deer that you weren't able to be successful on, was there any connections that you've made with other deer where you look back on this one and made like a light switch go off to where you're like, oh, this is like the bear buck bait. I need to do this tactic, or I need to try this. Is there anything that ever clicked like that?
No, probably not, because I'm so freaking old and I've been doing this for so long. But there are things that click, like looking at that bed, like I should have known he was sitting there. It's a leeward hill, even though it's not a big one, and he's got heavy cover against it. And I guess why I didn't think he would be bedding where he was because there's a logging road there, the same one I enter on, but I turned on the bait. He was just on the other side of thick stuff from that logging road. So it's literally, with the prevailing wind, he had the wind coming from the logging road. And he was only 15 yards off of it. And people walked on that logging road quite a bit, like squirrel hunters and stuff like you were saying. So he's sitting right next to the people walking on the logging road, watching the bait. So it didn't click with me, but it should have, because I've seen deer do that many times. So it's kind of the opposite of what you're saying. Did anything click for a future deer? Some things clicked, like I wasn't, using the knowledge I should have been. I wasn't realizing what was going on, and looking at it, it was so obvious after the fact that I felt like I should have seen it.
Yeah, it's such an awkward situation that you're not used to doing. Like, you're not used to hunting over this bait, so the other tactics.
Yeah, I mean, in me, I'm thinking this deer should be super scared of this bait. He should be super scared of the human, influence there. And what I wasn't taking into account probably was this deer's attitude. This wasn't the other deer. He was. It's just like when you run into, some giant guy that you can beat him up because he's afraid of you.
Yeah.
But some little guy might be some monster inside who'll kill you. This buck had an attitude. And every deer, and especially I think when they get a little age to them, which is kind of like people, they get their own little character. You know what I mean? They become who they are. And I've noticed that hunting mature bucks, that when you go after a deer will have, his own character. And when you learn that character, you get better at hunting them. Some of them are real bold. Some of them are real shy. Some of them are outgoing, where they're all over the place to show up 5 miles down the road. And some of them never leave a little tiny spot, and you just got to learn that deer. And this was one of those ones that would live right underneath your nose, even though he's in the big woods. He's up near the road. He's right up by the logging road, and watching you at point blank instead of getting spooked out of there, you know.
We had an encounter like that this year. We went in and hung in a new spot, and that buck was bedded like 30 yards off the cornfield probably. Mm-hmm. And we were in probably 95, 100 in kind of a pinch point area, and we could hear the deer coughing. And at first we were like, was that a deer coughing? And then you're like, there's no way. It's 35 yards off the main trail where people walk down right on the edge of the field. But sure enough, that buck got up, went over and hit a little rub, and then worked off. And we were like, in our mind, that's when it clicked. Like, that's a perfect spot. Because if the only way that he is not safe is the way we accessed, and that was on a south wind, when normally that time of year, all you have is north or northwest. So he was right in the money to see someone come in and win them. So stuff like that, that's how we have to learn. We have to physically see it mess up or something, and then the stuff starts clicking in our brain, like, okay, we need to start focusing on this more. And then that buck was bedding there, so 2 years down the road, if we got a deer on camera in that area, then that light bulb goes, oh, okay, there was a buck bedded there before, so I need to make sure and access this way. So I wish I had the archive of memories that you have, because then it'd be, it's just those years of going and logging that stuff way back deep, and then you pull it out when stuff connects. So
yeah, one other thing with that deer that kind of clicked afterwards was where that bed was off that logging road is exactly where those kids saw the buck walk across the logging road and walk into the thick cover. They saw him walk to that bed.
Wow.
And I never put that together.
Just making a road map for you out there. That's pretty much exactly what our deer do, too, is just make a road map for us. But they need to do it in Crayola crayons.
Preferably highlighter.
X marks the spot. Hit some highlighter keys to really help me out. But it'd be fun. It's always cool to go back after hunting a deer like that and trying to put the pieces together. That's when stuff clicks for us, especially after we kill them, then the stuff really starts clicking. So, well, Dan, we had you on here short notice, so we don't want to take up all your time. I really appreciate coming on. Definitely a unique story that you gave us, and just really appreciate you coming on and being part of this series and letting the listeners know that even people that hunt every day and are in the industry doing this, they get stumped and have a hard time killing these bucks every now and then also.
Yeah, sure, no problem.
Well, that was a very interesting story from the one and only Dan Infalt. The bear bait buck coming at you off the wall. A lot of our questions, I think, will coincide with some of these stories, but man, this one was just so out there and captivating that it's hard to relate that to any other deer that you would ever hunt.
Yeah, almost. And, that's something we're trying to do with this series is, like, everybody's got that deer where they've always had to do something different, or just like Dan said in there, every deer is different. It's got a different persona and demeanor and character. So having listened to him trying to hunt a buck like that's really way out there.
That's way out there, out of his element of what he's used to. So he's used to just going bouncing around, and he's hustling, trying to target this one deer, and that's really not something he does a lot either. He kind of
opportunist.
Yeah. Thanks for saving me right there. But we hope you guys are enjoying this series. We got a bunch more coming at you. The one thing that we want to do is we want to show the listeners that these big names struggle too. They're out there trying to get it done. And my biggest hope for this whole entire series is there's one guy out there that somehow out of all these, a light bulb clicks inside of him, and he's like, that's the same damn thing that my buck's doing. Mm-hmm. Or he's got this choice, like right now, talking to Dan, should I put more time in this buck? Dan, who's killed multiple buck, regrets not putting more time in this deer. There might be a guy on the fence right now, like, should I roll the dice on this one deer, or should I go after this other buck? And maybe this will help you decide if a guy that's killed hundreds of deer is regretting not going after this one. So, like always, try to do the right thing, leave a legacy, and Whitetail Legacy is out.